What you're looking at right there is the makings of a pro Formula D drift car coming up for the 2017 season. And I bet you can't guess what that chassis is. So pause the video, post in the comments, and no looking ahead.
Should I stand closer?
No, this is good. I like this. This is how we roll.
Yeah.
This is Steph Papadakis of Papadakis Racing, and I've known him for a long time from originally drag racing, but now he's gone to drifting. Tell me a little bit about the whole transition. I know it was a long time ago, but for people that don't know, how did that happen?
All right, I'll try to give you my history like in a short,
There you go, yeah.
concise. So 16 years old, I was really into cars, wanted to race, but 16 years old, where I'm not going to go to the racetrack or anything like that. There's no money for it.
Street racing, right?
So I was in street racing, and at street races we would drag race. And I had a Honda Civic at the time, and throughout the years it turned into like an actual race car. Like when I got a little bit older with some money, 18, 19 years old, started going to the Battle of the Imports. To give you an idea, like the time frame, that was mid 90s, late 90s. I'm 39
Just when the scene was starting
today.
to come up, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm 39 right now. Did drag racing on the streets, and for a little bit, got too many tickets, started going to the track.
Got smart.
And then started really turning the front-wheel drive car into a real drag car. Ended up building with Sean Carlson a crazy tube chassis, record-breaking, like 9-second and then 8-second.
Yeah, I remember
quarter
those
mile.
days.
Yeah, a lot of front-wheel drive records.
Yeah, NHRA Sport Compact, right?
Yep.
That series, yeah.
Years later, we did a rear-wheel drive V6 twin-turbo, 1,600 horsepower car with AEM, who we still work with today. We ran a best of 6.52 seconds at 215 miles an hour.
Which is screaming for the time, in my
Yeah.
opinion, right? Like, that was incredible.
But then after 15 years of all these drag racing, and I just wanted to do something different.
Yeah, it was starting to kind of plateau and fall off a little bit, and then...
I was getting burnt out at the same time.
Because you were driving and operating the team, right?
Yeah. And you know what? Honestly, it's like every time I'd leave town, we go to a new track, and it's another quarter mile straight track. Like, it was... I don't know. It just felt like I was getting burned out.
Yeah.
Wanted to do something different. On the side, I was doing some drifting with a Nissan 240, but we actually.
Hey, didn't you have that S2000 as well?
Yeah. So on the side, I had this 240, and we were actually doing some more stuff with Honda at the time. And they said, we'd prefer if you weren't in this Nissan thing. And I said, okay, can we do something with an S2000? So we ended up building an S2000. And I was doing drag racing and the drift in 2005. 2006, we decided to suspend the drag racing and just go full drift. I'd be the B car, and we wanted to have an A car.
Oh, cool.
And I didn't think I could go win the events. So Tanner Faust needed a good car, and we needed a good driver. And he was just kind of getting started at the time, but huge potential. So we built some 350Z, twin turbo, all set up for drift, and he drifted with us for the next 6 years and
won a championship, if I'm not
two
correct?
championships, back-to-back championships in that 350Z. We then later were able to start a great relationship with Scion, and that's when we built the TC1 back in 2000. What would that have been? 2009.
Yep.
And it was the original TC body with a NASCAR V8 engine, rear-wheel drive converted, all for drift, and then Tanner retired from drift in 2011. Fortunately, Fredic Aasbo was looking to do something more, and we needed a driver. So we built this car in 2011.
So this is 2.0.
Yeah, this is the TC2, second generation TC.
Yeah.
We had the V8 originally in Tanner's TC, but Scion said, we really would like it to be more authentic, as authentic as a rear-wheel drive conversion can be. Yeah. Right? And we want you to use the 4-cylinder engine.
So that's how the whole thing started, because I always wondered, going from V8 to a turbocharged 4 seems kind of going backwards, but now I get it.
Yeah, so at first it was like, oh man, this is going to be hard to do, right? Because at the time, everybody's 500-600 horsepower minimum.
Yeah.
If you want to compete at the high level, And the first year, it was difficult getting this engine worked out, because Chris Rado had done some time attack with this engine, and we were able to get some information from them. But with this endurance stuff, it took about a year to get figured out. And then it started, like every year we'd get another 100 horsepower, another 100 horsepower. To
More
where we're at,
reliability.
like, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, what happened is we started off like 500 horsepower, unreliable. And then we'd get to like it reliable 600, 650. Okay, let's add another 100.
Yeah.
And then become unreliable. And then we get back to like 750, 800 reliable. Okay, let's add another 100. And like each year, and that's typically what you try to do with the development program. Is you have your engine, which is your reliable engine that you know, okay, all day long we can make 600 horsepower. Okay, now let's start with the 750 horsepower engine. Try that.
Yeah.
And you know, we will have a couple of engine failures a year because we can't, on the dyno or just at the test day, we can't simulate the exact loads and how often you're running it and the heat of battle and
so
stuff.
much changes, right?
Totally.
What's this engine make for power right now then?
We're about 1,000 if we turn it all the way up. So like Irwindale, Irwindale at the end of last year, end of 2016, we were 1,000 horsepower. It's 33 pounds of boost and 150 shot of nitrous, all on at the same time.
And this is a 2.4?
2.7.
2.7, okay. All right, so that starts making some more sense.
Yeah, so it starts life as a 2.5, and then we stroke it to a 2.7.
Okay.
It's actually called a 2AR-FE engine. It's so 2015 or 2014 Scion TC, this is the engine that it comes with, which is also the same engine.
So you build these for people for the street all the time, right?
we actually don't do work for
really.
them.
No, they don't. Don't call them. So maybe give us a quick rundown without getting too technical. I'm sure some people want to know how you convert a car like this from front-wheel drive to rear-wheel drive.
All right, so what we want to do is keep everything under the stock hood, right? So normally the engine sits transverse. So this direction with the transmission on the side and the axles go out to the wheels, right? We actually have to turn the engine 90 degrees and we build all new engine mounts for it. There's a custom bell housing and adapter plate and then a racing transmission. So the engine just goes, straight out the back to the drive shaft. And then in the back, we mount we actually use a Toyota Supra rear end and we custom fabricate that into the Scion TC rear cross member. The Formula Drift rules mandate you have to use the factory cross members. So we fabricate the Supra into there, the Supra housing. And then the rear hubs are actually Scion TC, and we modify those with a different hub that accepts an axle. And the way the Formula Drift rules are, you have to use the stock cross member, but you can modify it for steering and like oil pan clearance. But that's still a factory cross member. And then we're allowed to do whatever you want on the suspension, pretty much. So the custom A-arms, the uprights, the shocks are all custom.
Yeah, as you can see, it's been moved out quite a bit, which is very typical I see in FD.
Yeah, so the FD rule is the suspension point has to stay within the bolt circle of these three, and we actually move it out as far as we can, because the track width is as wide as, it's much wider than factory, and we don't want to just have this offset wheel. We also want to try to bring the whole suspension out. And when you do that, having the pivot point for this McPherson type strut farther out helps.
So here we have the 2AFRE, did I get that right?
2ARFE.
There we go, all right. So we've got the 4-cylinder here, and tell me more about this. I don't think many people have fitted a dry sump to this engine. I mean, you've got to be doing pretty much your own R&D because there's not many companies that are supporting this motor, right?
No, yeah, everything on this engine is custom. So the pan bolts up just like the normal pan does, and we try to make it as shallow as possible. That way we have room for the rack, and we can lower the engine as much as we can. So the oil from the crankshaft and the rods and all that stuff and the pistons and cylinder head all fall into the crankcase here. And we don't want the crank just slapping all within all the oil, so you try to suck it all out. And these are areas where this pump is scavenging and sucking all of the oil out. And there's a little filter here in each one of these.
Oh, right on, super cool.
So that filter can be removed and cleaned. So that's like a pre-stage. So if you ever have an engine failure or something end up in there, it'll get filtered by that.
And what do you think from a dry sump setup in terms of power? Like I know people claim that you can pick up a decent amount of power just by going to a dry sump. What would you say on a motor like this you're gaining?
We're thinking it's probably close to 40 horsepower gain by going something like this.
That's phenomenal. So what's that saying? Bigger is always better, but not in the case of this clutch, right? Tell me about the Tilton. Like, why is it such a small clutch when you're running 1,000 horsepower?
Because it actually has 4 discs. In the road racing world, this is actually a pretty large clutch. They'll typically run, I think, like 5.5-inch clutches.
Wow, so even smaller.
Yeah. So this is our custom flywheel. And this has a traditional like GM spline on the inside of this Tilton. That way the transmissions that we use can be more traditional. And then this is like,
so there's your adapter plate.
Yeah. So the adapter plate goes onto the engine. It bolts on. Actually, I have it on backwards. It would go on like that, and it fits on the dowels. And then you'd bolt it on through with all these bolts, and then now you've got this different bolt pattern and another set of dowels that will go here for the bell housing.
Right.
Actually.
Okay.
So the bell housing, which is the traditional small block Chevy. So the reason why we switched to these Chevy NASCAR parts is because they're tried and true and really reliable, and we can buy them, and they're all sitting on shelves, you know?
When you start blow up a transmission, and then you can call somebody up and have one the next day kind of thing.
Totally.
Right.
We build so many custom parts because we have to, you know? The stuff where we don't have to, we'd rather not.
Of course.
We focus on, because at the end of the day, we're trying to win events, not...
And reliability is key, right?
Reliability is key. It's cool building all this trick stuff, but if someone makes something trick and we can just buy it, we'd rather do that. Same thing with like the building of the cars. It's, you know, we build our own drift cars because there is no like high-end drift car builder that you can go to that builds
that's turnkey
drift cars
for everybody. Yeah.
And because the chassis are so different and the rules are so different.
So we've got a real treat for you here. This is the new drift car for 2017.
Yeah.
And no, it is not a Volkswagen Golf or GTI. You may think that, but it isn't. What do we got going on here?
Yeah, so this is a Toyota Corolla IM. It's available in Europe as a RS.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they actually have a four-wheel drive variant. It gets us totally legal into Formula Drift. The suspension is actually kind of similar to the old TC that we were running, so we have a good start there. It'll be fun because it's a hatchback, right? You don't see hatchbacks
this is super unique. I'm excited to see this all come together, and I see there's been a ton of work back here. Maybe just give us a quick run through of what's going on.
So we get a stock vehicle, we strip it down to nothing, and we send it out for like a chemical dip. The dip takes all of the paint, undercoating, everything off, so then that way we start off with this bare metal chassis, because we're welding so much stuff to it. We cut off the front and rear of the car, so the way the Formula Drift rule is, you can do whatever you want behind the rearmost suspension point. So we basically cut the car off. And the reason we do that is because the cars get hit so much in the corners, and the front and the back, we need to be able to fix it right. When back in the days, we'd get hit in the corner, the thing would have to get dropped off at the body shop and stuck on the frame and get pulled. It sucked.
Yeah.
So now we can...
The evolution of drifting here.
Yeah, totally. So this is super raw. We've got the radiator mounted in the back. We're doing all the sheet metal and the firewall. If you go a little bit farther under, you can see all the custom fabrication to house the Toyota Super rear end that we use, and then the custom control arms and the modified hubs that we use to make it real.
It all looks super custom and super cool.
Yeah. So the way the rules are set up is we're allowed a certain area, like 10 inches below the windshield. I think it's like 18 inches wide, and then like 36 inches back. So within this area, you can build a tunnel, and the reason is they want you to have a reliable drivetrain in the car. This is the handbrake.
Of course. See, one of the first things they install, they got to get that handbrake placement on point, right?
You know, and you got to put this into perspective. Right now, we're the the end of January, so we're in the middle of this project. Everything's super raw, and we've got like a dozen different things all partially started or like mostly finished, but nothing's really finished at this point. It's actually a really cool place to see the car. The rails that go across the bottom here are the seat mounts.
Yeah, look how far back that is. Like, that's crazy. So the driver sits around here.
Yeah, Aasbo's, huge. So, yeah. But yeah, his head will be kind of here, and even look at the cage, it's set back as well.
Yeah. And tell me more about this piece here. Like, that's a work of art.
Yep, so the radiator's behind it, and we need three distinct areas. The cabin for the driver, which needs to be separated from all of the coolant and anything dangerous. This area is the cold air. So the radiator needs to get cold air from somewhere. We actually suck it from underneath the car.
You're kidding. Wow.
Yeah, so it comes up in there, and the radiator's set back.
Yeah.
So this is like a shroud for the front of the radiator, and then behind here is all the hot air and the outside of the car.
Okay, so we're up front here, and like you said, everything gets chopped off literally from the front of the shock towers.
Yeah, so this suspension point, the forward-most suspension point, is we can do whatever we want in front. So we cut it off, we do our own frame rails, There's actually a crossbar that goes across here that has the engine mount.
The front
on
engine mount, right? Similar to the TC.
Yep.
And then obviously the bash bar and everything will be built out from there.
Exactly. This, we already have one support bar welded in. The other side will get one of these. So it helps triangulate the whole. So what we do is we create a really strong short area. So the frame rails are triangulated. There's a crossbar that goes across. And then, so this is like what we don't want to
This is kind of, yeah, this is the exoskeleton that everything else can get mushed, crunched, replaced, but this you kind of want to keep.
Yep. So there'll be some flanges here, and then the bumper mounts to that, and then that goes off to the headlights and all those different things, and fender mounts and stuff. So if things get smashed, and then we can fix it at the track, you know, unbolt it, build a new one, and not have to worry about this end of it. So like this is the stock cross member, but then we mount this. The steering rack is actually out of a late model Supra.
Oh yeah.
And we changed it to front steer.
On the outside here with the suspension, looks like you're using a, I don't want to say conventional coilover, but typical system setup like that. And this is built by you guys, right?
Yeah, so this is a pretty standard setup. You know, it's a fabricated lower control arm with custom geometry. So the placement here is all designed with a specific drifting in mind. It's all hand fabricated. This is actually a Lexus IS350 hub that we bolt onto it.
Keep everything in the Toyota family. I appreciate that.
Yeah, a lot of Toyota parts actually.
Right. And so what's kind of the next step here? Obviously you guys gotta, like you said, finish up with the roll cage, then engine fitment. Have you got a motor built for this already?
The new engine is actually, no, we don't have the final engine that we're
more
gonna use
horsepower this year?
Maybe
a little bit?
50 or 100 more,
Okay.
maybe if we turn it up. We're trying to get another 1,000 RPM is the main thing. So we've been running it to 8,200. We want to try to get 9,200 RPM.
And why is that?
It makes it more forgiving for the driver. So the driver, if we can get power band from 2,500 to 9,000 RPM, he doesn't have to shift as much.
Right.
You know, it's just easier for the driver to do tandem and chase and different. You don't have to worry so much about gear ratios at the different tracks. So the more power band, the better. So that's one thing, is try to get more RPM out of it, and a little bit better reliability. We're always looking for more reliable setup and more power. Sure.
Yeah. Well, I think there's one more thing we need to look at, and it's a Scion FR-S with a V8 under the hood, but it's really going to surprise you what it is. So I know what you're thinking, not an LS, bro. No, we've got a 5-liter Coyote engine in here. I think this is the first of its kind.
That we know of, this was built a few years ago. It's for the owner of RSR Suspension in Japan, and he wanted to do something fun and different. And he had the idea, hey, let's put a Boss 302 500 and something horsepower cubic inch overhead cam Ford engine.
And it is massive, yet it fits.
Yeah, so we did the mechanical swap on it. So we did all the engine mounts, all the transmission stuff. It actually has full air conditioning, all the dash works, heater. I mean, everything works. The ABS is still in the car. It's a full-on street car.
Fantastic.
And, the plan is, I think, for him to take it back to Japan eventually and just cruise it around out there.
And have you driven it?
Yeah, I haven't really flogged it, but it's
pretty badass.
Yeah, and it's really smooth. Like, that's what I think is a good swap, is if it doesn't rattle and everything. Like, it feels like it belongs.
Mm-hmm. Well, this thing's super cool. And on that note, thank you, Steph, for letting us check out Papadakis Racing. And if you like this video, subscribe to the channel, check out our Instagram, and all that fun stuff.
Also, it's Papadakis, not Papadakis.
Didn't I say Papadakis again?
It's totally fun.
Learn your Greek, bro. Down here in our power stances, like a
There we
couple
go.
of bros.
Yeah, you know it. We're all broed out here. Ready?
A couple of icy hot stunters with a motor. All right, we're rolling.